All right, this time we're going to talk about drawing the figure. We've all learned how to draw the face. Now we're going to draw the figure. We're not going to worry about the face anymore. We're just going to move on. And the classic human figure, and again, it's all based on Greek proportions that the people who sculpted and did Greek sculptures all came up with this method of the proportions of the human body. The human body is what the Greeks called 8 heads tall. Yes. Now, obviously, my head and Cody's head are different sizes. So we are different sized people. If you ever looked at a person who's 5 foot tall and a person who's 7 foot tall, a 7 foot tall person has a much larger head. But proportionally, they're the same. In other words, the size of the head of the human figure determines how tall the human being is. So for instance, and again, we use the head as our scale of our measurement. Hopefully you've got some lined paper, yes, some blue lined paper, because it's much easier if you do. First of all, just draw a circle between the top line and the first line. Just draw yourself a circle, that's 1 head tall. And then count down 8 heads. So the 1 head is the first head, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and draw yourself a solid line. That's where the floor is, at 8 heads tall. Yes? Now, before we draw the figure, we're going to just put in a couple of points. First of all, this distance, if you turn it sideways, so take it this way and then move it this way, and move it this way, that's approximately the same distance as the head is that way. A normal human figure is what's called 2 heads wide. Now, I speak to you as a person who is wider than 2 heads wide. But the normal classic human figure is 2 heads wide. So we'll go with the normal classic human figure. And again, these are the points of the shoulder. Now, you want to come down about halfway down in this second line here, because if you come up directly here, the person's going to have a neck. So you want to leave a little room for the person's neck, not a lot. I mean, again, some people have a nice long neck, some people have shallow necks. But leave yourself a little room, come down, and put yourself 2 points that are 2 heads wide. Cool? Now, where a human being stands firm, when they're standing solidly, their feet are planted exactly at the width of their shoulders. So go ahead and transfer those 2 dots down here to where the feet would be, and just a normal person standing solid, that's the extent of where they're going to stand. Yes? Now, the core of your being, your genitalia, is right in the dead center. So women, you know what your genitalia look like. Men, you know what your genitalia look like. That's where they are, your core, yes? And as you both know, your knees come down below your genitalia, so approximately the same direction. You're gonna have your kneecap. You're gonna have your kneecap. Now, your outside, the inside of your leg is where your calf is gonna show most, right? There is a little bulge where your muscles are. And then you're gonna come down to your ankles and draw your feet in. Again, if that's, I don't know if you've ever seen Mickey Mouse, but that's Mickey Mouse's foot. If it's good enough for Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse, he made a lot of money doing that. So again, we talked about symbols. There's an excellent symbol for a foot. See if I find the marker, there it is. Now, the other thing is that below your shoulders, your wrist is gonna start right at your core. And so let's talk about a symbol for a hand. That's your left hand. That's your right hand. Now, are you going to get better at drawing these? Yes. Is this a good doofer? Sure. So draw yourself a lot of people call these lobster claws, where you have the long finger and the short finger that start, and that should be where your wrists are. Obviously, your elbows are halfway between. So again, you have people with biceps here. You're going to come out and you're going to have your forearm is going to come down, a little bulge there, a little bulge there, a little bulge there, a little bulge there. Now, it really isn't until this point of the figure that you have to figure out whether this is a man or a woman. And because we're about to draw the cavity. Women's cavities tend to have an hourglass shape. Now, again, not all women, but the classic female figure has an hourglass shape to it. So, and wider hips. So this would be an example of a female figure. Now, if you wanted to change this to a male figure, all you gotta do is change this to what I'm gonna call a barrel chest. If you take it and move it out that becomes more, and again, the proportions are the same. The head is still 1 head high, the figure is still 8 heads tall, even though this may be now a 6-foot figure where it had been a 5-foot figure if it was a female. Your proportions are still the same. Your hand's still in the same place, your shoulders are still the same place. And again, now that you've drawn your figure, you can do things like add clothes to them to hide any imperfections. I've got to go get myself another marker. So again, if you've got yourself a woman and you don't like the way she's drawing her legs, you can draw in a skirt. There's my little woman with a skirt. Draw yourself a little bustier on her. Put her hourglass figure back in. Again, don't erase. Just draw over. Just draw more, and we'll put some nice little, we'll put a little flower in her hair. Yes? Give herself a little poke on his nose. A couple of eyes here. Give herself some bangs. A thin little neck. We'll put a little ribbon around her neck. Yes? So again, you can, and if you put little folds in your, or we'll put a little peplum on her. There we go. So again, just draw over the figure and create your scale figure 8 heads tall. Yes? Now, one of the things I would encourage you to do, draw yourself some of these. When you put the person on the ground, create the shadow. Ground them. If you put a little shadow on the ground, it puts them onto the floor and grounds them on the floor. Just a little shadow down there. As you get to draw your figure, just get real good at doing 1 head tall, 2 heads wide, come down. There's our little shadow. There's our quick figure. And then you can change what she's doing, or hailing a cab, I don't know, whatever she's doing. Drawing on the chalkboard. Here's our little chalkboard. So she's drawing a little figure on the chalkboard. If it's me, here's my big old belly. I'll put my pants on the skirt, become my pant legs, yes? And so here I am over here with my little beard, right? So you can change the figure by just continuing to draw over the top of what you've already done. You don't have to erase anything, just keep on drawing, yes? So I would encourage you again, just very quickly, learn the proportions, do 4 or 5 of these where you actually lay out the head 1 head tall, come down 8 lines to get yourself used to drawing how the dimensions are, and then just start drawing independently of the lines figures that match the proportions of what you've already drawn. In different shapes, in different postures. Again, I've given you a sketchbook look of several figures. If you want to copy them, just copy the look of them, that'd be great. Again, the more you draw, the more synaptic connections you make, the easier it gets. Cool? Enjoy drawing you some figures.
How to maintain the proportions of the human body? First, create 8 equal parts for the body. The head is 1 part. Draw a vertical line and make 8 equal segments. First, you need to draw the head. The length of the neck is 1/4 of the head. The shoulders are twice as wide as the head is long. The chest takes 2 parts. The pelvis takes 1. The legs take 4 parts. The first half is joined to the second by the knees. The second part stops at the ankle to leave space for the feet. Now you only have the arms left to draw. The first part stops at the elbow, and the second stops at the wrist. To sum it up, the head takes one section, the neck and chest take two, the pelvis takes one, the thighs take two, and the rest of the leg before the knee takes two sections.